boring business myth, and specifically why just surviving in business does not automatically equal building wealth. You know the hype, right? We've all seen those posts everywhere telling us to ditch the flashy tech startups and buy laundromats or vending machines instead. But what's actually going on underneath all that hype? Now, to be completely fair, we've got to validate a huge piece of that hype right off the bat. The internet gurus aren't totally making things up, especially when we're talking about pure survival. Get this, roughly 90% of these quote-unquote boring businesses actually survive their first 5 years. I mean, that is a massive, incredibly impressive statistic. Think about the crazy failure rates of trendy restaurants or apps. Compared to that, 90% is just astronomical. It makes total sense why so many people are rushing to write checks and buy into these industries. Yes, they survive. But here's the reality check that kind of shutters the whole illusion. Just keeping the doors open, that is not the same thing as building million-dollar wealth. Survival literally just means the business hasn't died. It doesn't mean you're wealthy, and it absolutely doesn't mean you have anything of value to sell when you're finally ready to retire. In fact, plenty of people run a successful, boring business for a whole decade, and they have almost nothing to show for it except a pretty modest paycheck they wrote to themselves. So that brings us to the big, obvious question, doesn't it? If survival isn't the real test of a great business acquisition, what is? We really have to look past that surface-level profitability. Because let's be honest, almost anything can be made to look profitable on a spreadsheet for a year. Before you even think about handing over your money or committing to a business, you need a concrete, bulletproof filter. You need a way to know for sure if this business is actually going to compound wealth for you over time. Okay, here is the absolute core distinction you need to wrap your head around. Ask yourself, are you the asset or do you own an asset? This right here is the fundamental difference between just buying a job and true wealth creation. Look at the left side. If the money only rolls in because you personally show up to grind it out, well, you are the asset. But on the right side, if you own an underlying asset, say real estate or a rock-solid contract book, that thing exists and grows completely independent of whether you get out of bed in the morning. Your personal labor doesn't sell. Nobody is going to pay a massive premium to buy a business where the main asset is just a person clocking in every single day. Let's drive this painful reality home with one very simple test. If you stop working, does the money stop? If your revenue relies entirely on you personally driving around town to restock snacks in a machine, or endlessly hunting down thrift store inventory to flip, or physically standing out there pressure washing driveways, there is literally nothing underneath your business except your own sweat. If you take a month-long vacation and your income flatlines to zero, yeah, you haven't bought a business. You've just invented an unpaid job for yourself. To protect yourself from accidentally buying a job, we have an exact 3-question framework you can use to filter literally any business idea. Number 1, do customers pay you automatically every single month? We're talking real recurring revenue here. Number 2, is the purchase low drama? Nobody loses sleep over a $30 lawn treatment. It's a super sticky, easy yes. And number 3, is there a tangible asset underneath the whole operation that you could actually sell for a multiple later on? Now here's the kicker. A ton of those flashy online pitches you see pass the first 2 questions with flying colors. But question 3, that's where the trap springs. Question 3 is the one that actually matters. It is exactly what separates the true, heavy-hitting wealth builders from those glorified jobs we talked about. It's not just about the cash flow you're getting today. It's about whether there's a physical asset, real estate, or a solid contract book sitting underneath that cash flow that a buyer's going to pay top dollar for it tomorrow. All right, section 1, the overhyped illusions and job-like businesses. Let's aggressively test a few of those super-hyped business models against our new framework. First up on the chopping block, vending machine and ATM routes. Everyone loves calling these passive income machines, but let's run them through the filter. Do they have recurring pay? Kind of. People do reliably feed dollars into them. Are they low drama? Absolutely. But question 3, is there a tangible asset? Nope. Honestly, a vending machine is just a metal box that drops in value every single year. And the locations? Those handshake contracts can vanish literally the second a property manager decides they want to try a new vendor. There is no sellable, tangible asset here. It's just a bunch of depreciating boxes you're stuck manually restocking. Next, let's talk about reselling and flipping. This could be retail arbitrage, thrift store flips, sneaker hunting, whatever the flavor of the month is. This one fails our test instantly. There is absolutely zero automatic monthly recurring revenue. Every single sale is a brand new hunt. And worse, your inventory isn't some appreciating asset. It's just stuff. Stuff sitting in your garage waiting to be sold at a markup. The very second you stop sourcing and listing new items, the whole business completely shuts down. And listen, this applies to those really lucrative solo services too. Think solo pressure washing, a single truck lawn care guy, or a one-person handyman setup. Now, don't get me wrong, you can genuinely make six figures doing this stuff, but it firmly, undeniably fails the asset test. You don't have a transferable contract book. The entire client relationship is built on you, personally, rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. If you tweak your back, get burned out, or just want to take a month off, the income doesn't just slow down, it hits a brick wall. Okay, let's shift gears. Section 2, the wealth builders. Let's focus on the positive and look at 5 specific models that actually pass our test. Check out self-storage and membership model car washes. Self-storage absolutely nails all 3 questions. Customers pay you automatically every month, it is an incredibly low-drama purchase, and the underlying asset, it's the real estate itself. Honestly, even if every single tenant moved out tomorrow, you still own land and buildings that are going up in value. Membership car washes work the exact same way. You've got monthly subscription revenue, sticky customers, you own the dirt it sits on, plus you're building a real, sellable membership book that guarantees predictable future cash flow. And this perfectly highlights how recurring home services are totally different from those solo gigs we just bashed. We're talking about things like pest control routes, HVAC maintenance plans, and lawn treatment subscriptions. See, these aren't built around one sweaty guy in a truck. They're built as actual systems. The asset here isn't necessarily a piece of land. It is the contract book. It's that beautiful list of recurring customers sitting on autopay. Private equity firms and massive buyers will literally throw huge multiples at you for this contract book, specifically because the revenue keeps flowing whether a certain technician shows up to work or not. Which brings us all the way back around to laundromats, but with a massive, absolutely crucial caveat. If you just lease a retail space and run the washers and dryers, you step right into the vending machine trap. You own depreciating equipment, and a landlord completely controls your fate. But if you actually buy the real estate alongside the business, the entire financial outcome flips on its head. Suddenly, you have land and a building that are appreciating in value, right alongside your low-drama recurring revenue business. That real estate is what makes it a true asset. Finally, let's round out our list here by tossing in commercial cleaning. These operations run on multi-month or even multi-year contracts for big office buildings and medical facilities. The asset is that massive, reliable book of standing contracts. When you zoom out and look at all these winning models together, a totally undeniable pattern emerges. It is literally never about the industry itself. It is 100% about the tangible asset, whether that's dirt, a building, or an ironclad contract book sitting quietly underneath the cash flow. All right, let's bring this explainer home with some pretty sobering math. Out of every 100 people who go out and buy a boring business, only 17 actually cross the $1 million net worth mark. The other 83%, well, they didn't necessarily fail. Remember, most of these survive, right? But they either bought a very well-disguised job instead of an asset, or they bought an asset but didn't structure the deal properly to let time actually do the compounding. When you strip away all that flashy internet hype, you can see exactly what those 17 people actually did right. And honestly, it's a pretty unsexy secret. They structured their purchase around a real tangible asset. Then, they kept their costs super low. They aggressively reinvested their profits instead of blowing it on a fancy new truck or lifestyle upgrades, and they gave it years, now just a few months, to compound. They didn't hit the lottery. They just used the right filter and let time do the heavy lifting for them. Ultimately, before you jumped headfirst into the world of boring businesses, you've got to take a really objective look at your plans, run your ideas through those 3 questions, actively hunt for the underlying real estate or that ironclad contract book, and ask yourself this one very provocative question. Are you actually building a wealth-generating asset, or are you just buying a very well-disguised job? Because I promise you the answer to that question changes absolutely everything. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.